Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's session, Flip or Flop, Spotting the Pitfalls of Poorly Flipped Homes and Other Aspects of Those. We're going to dive right into it. I know as real estate agents, we see a lot of listings, and it always starts with viewing them online. I know hopefully we haven't ended up in this situation too many times, but occasionally we do encounter those moments where we see something that looks beautifully renovated online, only to show up in person and see that the work isn't quite what we expected. And that's kind of the best case situation when we can see it for ourselves and know that's the case. But then other times there are moments where maybe there are things behind the scenes and it takes some time to find out how they've been handled and what's been done. Hopefully that happens while we're under contract and not once our clients are in the home. But regardless, that's why we have Josh here today. Josh is an inspector with Open Windows Home Inspections. He sees it all. And so he's here today to help us spot some of those items, both in terms of things that are good and things that should be kind of red flags for us. So bring your questions. He's going to go over a lot today, but your experiences are what help us serve our clients. And so as things come up, please feel free to do the little hand raise icon or put it in the chat. I'll keep an eye out. But Josh, thanks so much for doing this today. I'm really excited.
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely love doing this. I'm more of an in-person type deal, so the Zoom, I don't mind it, but I love the in-person. So we'll get through this. If I don't see your hand, I apologize. So just give me a shout or speak up. Don't be afraid to do that. Um, and like what was said is, you see these houses online, and they look absolutely beautiful. Of course they do, because they go to somebody that edits these photos, right? Um, and I think that is a mistake that a lot of listing agents do, is not actually show the house as it is in like a real picture, just the way the photographer takes it. Yeah, you can do a little bit of lighting here and there on them, but I mean, I think they're really going above and beyond on some of these flips. So let's get into that. Once you're on site, you'll be able to really tell, if there's major issues, if you need to move on or whatnot. So let's get into it. Uh-oh. There we go. All right. So the presentation offers valuable insights, common issues found in flipped homes, right? Um, to be able to understand the potential problems, and it's going to really help you better advise your clients, avoid costly mistakes, and really the biggest thing is to have a smoother transaction. Not every transaction is smooth, but if you can make it that much smoother, or if your inspector can make it that much smoother, why not, right? So being informed and being able to have that keen eye on aspects of flipped homes, I think is super valuable. Even and it doesn't even have to be a flipped home. It could be just a kitchen renovation or a bathroom renovation. Looking at those individual areas as well. So um, you want to stay competitive. Raleigh market, I like to call it the cutthroat uh, of the triangle, and the surrounding areas. I work in the Fayetteville area, all the way down to North Lumberton and Southern Pines, but none of those places compared to the Raleigh market. And it's just a different real estate market altogether. So let's get into the house flipping boom. So we were talking earlier that the flipping of the houses was really at the beginning of COVID. A lot of people indoors trying to figure out how they're going to make money. Then you start getting a lot of these new investors and things like that. And Raleigh and Charlotte uh, are the two main markets where um, that were just really hot for them. It was driven by the population growth and the strong economy, um, and it just really attracted a lot of investors. And unfortunately, there's a lot of out-of-state investors. So with that, compared to other markets, the U.S. Rally offers relatively affordable prices, uh, and it's easy for investors to enter that market at low upfront cost. So that's the idea for investors, and I think that's why the boom in the Raleigh market and surrounding areas was so big during the COVID time. So coming up to the end of 2023, the fourth quarter, an average of 13.1% homes sold in Raleigh were bought by investors. Uh, and it's because of the neighborhoods that they could invest in. You know, they had established areas with high-end homes and up-and-coming communities with growth potential, right? And then kind of everything in between. So that the diversity there, you know, you could have somebody that's been doing it for 20 years, and then you could have a newbie investor coming in. And I think that's why the investing population grew so fast. Now it has dropped, obviously, beginning of 2024 because uh, of rates coming up and things like that. It makes it a little harder. Uh, and plus the prices of homes being a little bit more as well. So it's still going on, but you don't have as many players in the field. So the challenge for the realtors, and I'm sure you face this almost daily, um, is the out-of-state investors. So they need the expertise to get these flips, to a quality where they can get it sold for a fair price, where they can still make money. The issue is these out-of-state investors don't know the contractors. They're just going in kind of blind unless they've lived here or they have friends here or something like that. They're kind of going in blind. So they get these poor contractors and not poor contractors, but like the poor workmanship of the contractors, and then the poor oversight of the contractor. So they pay these contractors $50,000 to go in and gut the house and redo it, and there's just no oversight whatsoever. So they're cutting corners everywhere they can so that those contractors can make more money. And that's where you get into hiding these bad repairs, hiding issues that are very costly that they don't want to do. Oh, happy fingers there. So some red flags and kind of how to spot bad flips. And I'll show you pictures as well. We'll get into those after this. So uneven floors. If you walk into a house and you feel like you have vertigo, um, and you've never had vertigo, you'll know if it has sloped floors because of that. It's a very you'll feel dizzy almost, or like you're on a boat or something. It's really weird, and you'll definitely know. Humps and dips in newly installed floors. So a lot of um, contractors will use a cheap laminate floor or laminate plank, and you'll be able to, while you're walking, you'll feel some of that flooring, kind of sink down. That means the flooring underneath is not level at all. Loose carpet. You get these guys that will just throw some carpet in and hope for the best, and you walk in and you might see a spot where it's not quite lined up. I've walked in and seen every bedroom was recarpeted, and then I open up the closet and there's no carpet in the closet. Uh, so it's kind of crazy what you see out there. Sloped flooring, that's another one. So that's where you get the board vertigo as well. And an incomplete installation is what I was talking about with the closets. So lack of quality, and these are things that you can spot right away walking through the home. The do-it-yourself plumbing and electrical, like ribbed waste plumbing. And I'll show you what ribbed waste plumbing is, but it's that flexible tubing. A lot of times we see those. They'll take that and they'll run a P trap or something underneath the sink. Um, if they install light switches or anything like that, they're usually crooked and not level. Extension cords running from appliances like dishwashers and refrigerators. We see it all. Trust me, we see it all. We had a dishwasher on one side, and the plug ran all the way through all of the cabinets and then over to a receptacle somewhere. Sloppy paint jobs. A lot of times these guys will come in and they'll just slap the paint on there, and then you just see the drips down the wall or areas that haven't even been painted. Excessive caulking or drywall spackle around windows and doors, that's a huge sign. And if you see that, that's definitely you may want to have a talk with your client at that point. That just means they're trying to hide moisture damage, or some type of other issues. Subpar drywall repairs. They throw the drywall spackle up there, and they're just too lazy to sand it down, so they got a bump, a painted over bump. And then repaired areas on textured ceilings. That's a huge indicator. So we'll talk about some cheap materials. They investors want to use materials that are not super expensive but look decent, right? So this carpet one didn't turn out very well. If it was blown up, you could really see it. But there's about 3 patches on that carpet there. And I wish I could have a bit. I should have just blown that one up single. To the right of that, you'll see this was actually in one kitchen. So they went out and they bought some decent cabinets, not too bad, but they put them all the way up to the ceiling. And this was in a condo, so the condo had sprinklers installed. They can't even open up that cabinet because of the sprinklers there on the ceiling. And then they had the washer and dryer area right next to the refrigerator. Uh, and they couldn't even open or close the refrigerator if they were doing laundry. And then it looks like they had the refrigerator that they just bought. It was too big, and it was the oven door is rubbing on it there. So little things like that you can catch. And to the right of that, right there in the upper middle portion, cheap siding. This is something that the contractors had to do, like actual builders had to deal with, is cheap siding. So if you have homes that are fairly close and the neighboring windows glare sun onto that home and you have cheap siding, this is what it's going to do. It's going to burn that siding, and it's gonna start melting. We see that quite a bit. And then into your flooring, if you see laminate flooring that's pulling up or stick-on tiles like this, that's an indicator. Most flips, I don't see that type of material where it just sticks on, but they'll use like the roll laminate, things like that. Subpar paint. You can see on the ceiling, they've got some repaired areas. Instead of painting the whole ceiling, they just painted those areas. And then for your countertops, they'll use like a laminate roll, uh, or they'll paint it. Excuse me. Goodness. So if you look at that bathroom sink, that that countertop there has been painted, but if you look close at the sink itself, it's actually rusted. So they didn't replace the sink, but they painted the countertop, painted the cabinetry, and then replaced the faucet up top. The little things like that. And then I think the biggest thing is the dome lights you see out throughout the house. You can buy those dome lights. They're $15, $20, maybe $25 a piece. And then they'll put them in every single room. It all looks the same. So signs of amateur or sloppy installation. Your electrical, and you can see these. Everything that I'm talking about, you should be able to visually, see these if you're looking pretty decent. Exposed wires, check for visible wiring in unfinished spaces like basement, garages, attics. Obviously, you may peek your head up there if it's a walk-in or a ladder, pull down ladder, but most of the time leave that for your inspector. So, um, and the reason that we say look for visible wiring because a lot of times they'll put in a wall, or they'll add receptacles and things like that, and it's not permitted, or it's not done correctly. You also see non-GFCI outlets in your kitchens, bathrooms, outdoor areas. Uh, and the thing is if a lot of people think that they can are grandfathered in to these old standards. But the thing is if you update a kitchen, the entire kitchen, you have to bring the whole kitchen up to date, up to today's standards, up to today's codes. So if you go in and somebody redid the kitchen and you don't see any GFCI receptacles for the ground fault circuit with the little buttons, that is definitely not up to code, and that's something that they do have to. And that goes with anything. For a water heater as well, if they get the water heater replaced, then they have to bring up the entire water heater code. Flickering or dimming lights. You know, if you turn on a light and it kind of flickers for a second, that could be an indicator that whoever installed that light didn't do it properly. Maybe they got the wires tied backwards, or the light switch is no good. Plumbing problems. Obviously, the biggest visible is the water stains on the ceiling, the walls, under sinks, and things like that. The biggest thing that we see is everything from the floor up looks good, but once you get into the crawl space, nothing was touched. So all the plumbing, a lot of times you'll see where they'll go into a bathroom and they'll fix the plumbing while they tear out the floor. They'll fix the plumbing from the floor up, and they don't get into the crawl space after they're complete to check to see if that plumbing's leaking. Low water pressure. Low water pressure is an indication, maybe they uh, threw a bunch of debris down into all the waste lines. That typically we see that in the kitchen sinks, or in a sink in a laundry room or garage. And I mean, I've seen 12-inch pieces of drywall being pulled out of a drain. It's pretty crazy. And then slow drainage. Uh, if you have slow drainage, maybe they updated some of the plumbing, but didn't do all the old plumbing. And then structural changes. If you see cracks in the walls or ceilings, off the doors and the windows, uh, and it's been renovated recently, why are those cracks already coming back? What did they do to make the structure weaker or move during that time? Doors and window issues. If you have a trouble opening doors or your windows, or all of the doors throughout the house are not latching, is there more underlying issues than just an unlevel door? You have to be careful with that one, because if you have wooden windows and they haven't been opened in at least 30 days, they're most likely either one, they're painted over, which is typically what it is, or uh, two, they're just swollen shut because they haven't been operated in so long. And then again, uneven floors. So what to look for? You can see here on the far left, we've got an open electrical box. That was right from the crawl space door. We could see that. Painted over receptacles, we see that all the time. That means that they didn't replace anything. And then here's your on-level floors. You open up the door and it rubs on the floor right away. That's a big indicator. And then your sloping floors. Look at the gap right at the bottom of that door. On the right side is pretty good, and on the left is a pretty big gap. So that's a huge indicator. They try to hide that one pretty good. So there's your ribbed waste plumbing in the upper left corner. We don't it's okay to use vertically, but not horizontally. We still write it up because the issue with ribbed waste plumbing is it tends to wear out in the ribbed area, especially on the interior where it meets. Um, the other thing is it really collects a lot of dirt and debris and nastiness. We always just say that you should just replace it, and it's really not that hard to do it right. And below that, they just straight piped from the sink There's no P-trap, like you can see with the waste ribbed plumbing there. It's got a P-trap at the bottom. That sink underneath that it's just straight down into the crawl space. And then to the upper right, you can see that the support pier. This is an older home. We typically see this. It'll have some bricks just stacked up and either kind of offset or not touching at all. And that could have been just updated over time, um, or whoever went in there just decided, it's Friday, let's go home. And then below that, you've got another a pier that is definitely leaning, that is very subpar, and it's just all around. It's not done correctly. That actually should have gone up uh, all the way to the flooring system, and they added a 2x10 there for whatever reason. Scroll down, and this is the biggest thing that we see over on the bottom left is hidden moisture damage on windows. You'll get somebody in there, the bottom left and the right. You'll get somebody in there and they'll use Bondo or drywall spackle or caulking, and then they just take a putty knife and they try to smooth it out nice and neat. Sometimes they just won't even smooth it out at all, and they'll just kind of rub it with their finger. Those are big indicators that there's underlying issues there, especially on windows.
Hey Josh, real
And then,
quick, we have a
yes,
question in the chat I'd like to get to
yeah,
before we get past those photos.
sure.
Sarah was asking if you could recap the issue with the second plumbing picture and it going straight into the crawl space. Will you explain why a P-trap is needed and what that does?
So what a P-trap does is it fills with water and it keeps a little bit of water in there, and that keeps all the nasty toxins from coming into the home and smelling up the home. So all your sewage smells and things like that. That's what it keeps out. And when you run your sink, uh, it just runs out water and then it spills over. So there's always water in that P-trap, and that's why it has to have a P-trap. Now we did confirm down in the crawl space that it was straight piped as well, because sometimes what they'll do is they'll run that straight into the crawl space and then have their P trap. But with this, they couldn't do that at all.
Some things.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm looking through the comments as well. I want to make sure I get it. But all right. So here is the far left is a window. Those are brand new windows, and they have gaps on them. And what that means is when they install these windows, they didn't go in there and put shims on the side of the windows to tighten it up. And the homeowner or the buyer is going to have a lot of uh, issues to heat and cool that house constantly. Their bills are going to be extremely high if you have a lot of windows like that. You're gonna let a lot of cool or hot air out. And then here in the middle, we have a water heater. We see this almost every water heater. They'll install it without a drain pan or a catch pan underneath. Um, and with it being indoors, those have to be plumbed to drain out to a proper place. So we see that all the time. This one had multiple things. Um, it didn't have a local shutoff switch for it. It didn't have uh, a a discharge pipe for the TPRV valve up top. It was we I don't know. We just see it all the time. Most of the time, plumbers are not the ones installing these. And then to the far right, they redid the siding. It looks really great, brand new window, but they put the siding all the way down to the concrete. The issue with that is that does not allow water to come out from behind that siding. You do get a little bit of moisture behind the siding. And then the other thing is that can hide termites or infestation of ants or anything like that. So that this wall within a few years at the bottom is probably going to be rotten out. I didn't put too many roof issues, but if you step back, or as you're walking up to the home and you just happen to look up and you see some dark spots throughout the roof, most of the time that's going to be heavy sealant, some type of heavy sealant. That is a huge indicator that the shingles were not installed properly, or there's some type of other issues going on. Maybe they had a branch come down and damage the shingle or whatever. And then to the right of that, this is what I was talking about, subpar drywall repair. You can see that they spackled it and then didn't even really sand it. And they just painted red over top of it. And then this issue here, the third from the left, these dark area in here, I don't know, can you see my mouse? Okay, awesome. So the dark areas here, uh, they use like a wood filler or Bondo, and they were trying to cover up the damage that was there. And what it was active termites. And the termites were like, well, we got you. We'll just eat around that and eat everything else. So all the light area is termite damage. And that's scary because that was about halfway up the wall. And then you've got your homeowner that loves DIY projects, and they put the silliest things like this in a basement. This wasn't very big, but they put it on a drain that was not meant for human waste. Uh, and they had to pay a lot of money to get that removed and cleaned out. It was pretty nasty. Uh, I've seen toilets in attics and closets and things like that. It's absolutely amazing what some people do. Let's talk about crawl spaces a little bit. So I always say if, and it doesn't matter what house you're going into, you should at least take a peek into the crawl space. You don't have to get in, but just take a peek. Nothing's gonna jump out. It might. I'm just kidding. No. Opening that door, it's gonna scare animals and stuff and whatever away. So make sure you have a good flashlight with you. That way you can just take a peek down in there and see what's going on. You're looking for standing water, signs of leaks. Does the smell remind you of dampness or mildew? Um, if you do get that musty smell, that's an indication that there's lack of ventilation going. Structural integrity. Do you see any movement of the foundation? Are there large cracks on the outside? Do you see any support piers leaning or not connected? And again, ventilation. Is there adequate vents? And are they above ground? A lot of times we see with these older homes that they're either at or below ground without vent wells in front of them. And then insulation. So pre-1980s and older, most homes won't have insulation. It wasn't until about the early 80s that they started realizing that crawl spaces needed to be vented and put insulation in and things like that. So a lot of, like, especially your 50s and your 60s homes will not have insulation unless they've been updated. And then the overall condition. Is it clean? Does it look organized? Is there a vapor barrier that covers all areas? Is there debris post renovations? And then are there remnants of old wiring and HVAC? And you can see we've got a lot of standing water here and a lot of construction debris. This construction debris and the moisture, termites love moisture and they love wood that is on the ground. That they will eat that all day long. But this is scary because of all the water that's going on here. That's where you start getting into your foundation and your pier issues with your structure. Is the moisture high in there? That musty smell. If you see hanging insulation and then you've got that musty smell, that's definitely an indicator that there's lack of ventilation or something going on in there. And then the far right, upper right corner, this one's okay. It's not too bad, but there's no vapor, right? And you can see it's been insulated on the walls a little bit, but there's no insulation on the floor. And so all this moisture and this cold air is just making that floor just that much worse. And then do you have a lot of debris down there? Even the homeowners debris, you know? How do the ductwork look? Is it old? Is it been torn apart? Is it sagging? Is it touching the floor? Excuse me. And then construction debris. You'll get uh, that's one thing that we see a lot is a lot of construction debris, especially if they tore up the subfloor. They just throw everything down in the crawl space because it's out of sight, out of mind. But when we get in there, that's one of the biggest things that we're writing up is construction debris. This is what a crawl space should look like, or fairly similar. You know, dirty, maybe some spider webs, but it should have a vapor barrier on the flooring and some insulation on the floor. And then your ductwork should be hanging and not touching the ground or anything like that. This is a very nice crawl space. So professional versus amateur. Spot the differences here. So your your professionals, you'll have seamless installations, high quality finishes typically. Even if it's a medium finish, you can just tell when you walk in that somebody's been doing it for a very long time and they like what they're doing. The doors on all the cabinets are lined up, or the carpet is stretched just right and it looks really good. So amateurs often will have missing handles. The cabinet doors are unlevel. The drawers are kind of canted, um, and then you can see right where a cabinet and a cabinet meet. You can see the seam, and that's a lot with kitchen renovations. Bathrooms, um, look for waterproof surfaces and well executed tile. Um, you'll see if you look at the grout lines in between the tiles, and it kind of gets bigger and smaller and bigger and smaller, that's not a professional. That's somebody that was just taught, has done it maybe a few times, and you can see this stuff. You'll really see. Or if you see a caulk line on a sink, and it looks like somebody just took their finger and finger painted it on there, that's a huge indicator. You'll see that around the bathtub a lot. So kind of a checklist to keep on you for the exterior is mismatched siding. Uh, I understand that sometimes you only need to replace one piece, but if it's multiple pieces, that's something to think about. Roofing is another one. Do you have patches of roofing throughout that have new shingles on it? Poorly graded landscaping. That's another huge. They put these beautiful mulch beds in and things like that, but they don't have that grade away from the house. And those downspouts will go right into that mulch bed, and all that water pulls up and it seeps through the foundation wall. And then, do you have visible foundation cracks? Interior signs, inconsistent flooring materials. You go from your dining room into the foyer. Did they put new flooring um, in the foyer and then leave the 80-year-old wood flooring in the dining room with a horrible transition? It may look okay, but was it done? Any hastily painted over problem areas? like that drywall that we talked with the spackle, and they just painted right over top of it. And then, is there odors masking potential issues? A lot of times we'll smell pet urine or feces. If you have new carpet or new flooring in the home, and you still have uh, pet feces or urine smell, that means the subflooring has soaked it up, or they didn't replace the padding on the carpet. And then some system concerns, mismatch HVAC components. There are some systems that are compatible with each other, but this is more along the lines, if you can see it, try to identify if it's a train and a train, if you have a split system, uh, and if not, ask your inspector to pay close attention to that. Outdated electrical panels, and we see this all the time with homes. They a lot of investors won't mess with an electrical panel unless they absolutely have to. And then signs of do-it-yourself plumbing repairs and electrical again. So some ideas to consider when researching a property. Look up the owner. Who are the previous owners? Kind of look in to see who the investor is. Is he, uh, you know, uh, an investor that has multiple properties over and over? Does he, how many properties in Raleigh does he have? And then you can kind of see like when that property was bought and how long it took them. If that property was bought 3 months ago and it's back on the market, that was a quick turnaround, pretty quick turnaround. Verify the permits. If you have a new deck on the home, if you have um, walls that are removed or added, what kind of permits were pulled for that home. And then always, always, always professional inspection. Recommend inspected by a licensed home inspector or general contractor for sure. They will, they have a keen eye of knowing and seeing what the underlying issues are or what's being hidden, excuse me. And then educate your buyers, and inform your clients about potential risk and benefits of flip properties. There could be a lot of underlying issues. I think if you prep them going into that purchase, when that home inspection comes back and you've got 30, 40 items on there, it's not a surprise. Um, that way, they're not like, oh my goodness, it looks so nice to flip. So some key takeaways is really develop, your keen eye, um, have that ability to spot the signs of poor craftsmanship and cheap materials. Not every flip is like that, but we do see a lot of them to have this conversation that we're having. Stay informed, keep up with your local regulations and market trends. If you work with a builder, talk with the builder. Get more information. Hey, what's going on in today's market? What's been updated? Talk with your home inspectors. Uh, if your home inspector can't answer certain questions or say, give you updates about anything, maybe consider finding another home inspector. They should be staying up on a lot of the local regulations and state-like regulations. And then obviously protect your clients. You want to advocate for a thorough inspection and due diligence on flip properties. Don't let them push you around. They've got the money to go in and make these repairs that should have been done right the first time. Questions, comments?
Thank you, Josh. I've got a few
Yeah,
in the chat. Cindy was asking for the slanted floors. That was a question I had too. Could you explain what should have been done? Obviously, most of those are older homes, and so they've settled over time. What is a realistic repair for something like that?
so if it's a floor that is very slanted, there are different things that you can do. One, you have to determine, is it structural? Did a support pier, um, fall out, or like what is going on? Why is that? So that's the first thing that they need to figure out, and then that repair needs to be made to either need to jack that floor up, or if it's structurally sound and it just kind of sunk over time, they can level those floors. Uh, you know, I don't want to talk about my mom, but she's got an older home, and they had it kind of the house kind of sunk in the middle. Well, what they did is they jacked it up just a little bit, and it was still, a half inch off in the center. So all they did was level the floors up. That way, you didn't feel like you had vertigo walking through there. So those typically when you have slanted floors, those are a little bit costly repairs because you do have to mess with the foundation or support piers because it's structural.
That's what I was afraid of. But that's why you want them to do it and not your clients. Kitsy said if you have that subfloor down in the crawl space and it's yucky, would you replace it from above or below?
It should be done from above. And the reason it can be done from below, but it's hard because you have all your joists. So if you do it from above, you do have to remove the floor coverings, but it should be done from above so you can get the entire area that needs to be cut out. Um, and you won't cause more damage than going from below.
Yeah, that makes sense. A few things I wanted to share. I took a few notes as you were talking, but for the debris in the crawl space, that's something I've encountered as well. And I think as agents, we just kind of like we'll see it while we're touring homes and we'll just kind of assume, oh, they'll remove that before closing. And to your point, half the time those investors are out of state, they have no idea that stuff is even there. The contractors are long since gone. So just a friendly reminder, feel free to put those in like the additional provisions addenda and just say personal property and all debris to be removed prior to inspection, ideally. That way it's well gone, but at least before closing. Or if you do say before closing, make sure you say 3 days, like put a specific time so that you aren't going the day of closing and finding stuff in there. Because I've done that and therefore been taking some trips to the dump. One of the other things that I like to say is when we're touring homes, the way that they take care of the things we can see says a lot about how they've taken care of the things we can't see. And so I know we spend a lot of time talking about spotting things, and some of them might be very obvious when we're in the home and they might not seem too big of a deal, like the drywall patching. But if this is a big investment and they're dropping all this money, they're willing to do something so cheap and quickly, like what have they done for those big ticket systems, the plumbing behind the walls, the things that we don't know about? So I know we all know this, but just that's one of the scripts that I would use all the time. And then another one I would use is, especially if I have a client that's looking in a downtown area, and so a lot of the properties we are looking at have been updated or renovated, I'll often just drop in there at some point. When we're talking about updates or renovations or flips, there's a sliding scale of quality. We've got the people that have watched HGTV a few too many times and think they can do it themselves. And then we've got the pros, right? Like every time we go into a house, we're going to be evaluating who we think we've been working with and whether it's a challenge or liability that we are interested in taking on. So anyway, those are just a few things that I noted, but I'd love to know if there are other questions that you guys had, maybe something you've run into personally or professionally, or on that same note, if there's a script that you want to share, because that's exactly what we're here for today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, you just reminded me talking about those like old downtown houses that are built in like the 1950s. And we're talking about crawl spaces. They have like
Yeah.
the ones that you have to like army crawl on your belly to get around in. Like obviously these houses aren't just, like need to be torn down or anything like that. But I guess like what do you think as an inspector when you see that? Because there's always stuff under there. It's always a mess. It usually smells, moist. And so like what should people be thinking if they're thinking about buying one of those houses as far as the crawl space is concerned?
When it comes to crawl spaces, they really have to consider the pros and cons of not doing the crawl space or anything in the crawl space to like what can I do inside on my own? What are the major issues to where I can do it on my own and just focus on that crawl space because nobody loves crawl spaces. Nobody loves dealing with them. Nobody goes down there, and it's a very scary area for a lot of people. And it could be a scary area for a home not to have an upkept crawl space. So, there's three areas that I always focus on: roof, attic, crawl space, and then it goes into your big system. So, crawl space is typically, if the inside of the home is good and there's no major plumbing issues, focus on that crawl space 100%. They get that debris out of there, get that moisture out of there. I think that's the number one thing is moisture issues. Um, Once you get prolonged moisture, you start getting into wood rot and termites and all types of other bugs and things like that. So definitely, focus on that. If you can do one or two major things inside and then get that crawl space repairs, that's the way I would go.
Yeah. Thanks.
The other thing that makes me think of, Caitlin, is like if we as a random consumer wouldn't be sliding in there, like sure, maybe the inspector might be able to fit in there, but would random contractors have gone down there? Like I think it's kind of all of us are in that same boat. And so what's down there that none of us would know about, and is it worth
Right.
it?
And I always see just like random pieces of piping and like just all kinds of crap under there that's accumulated over time. So
And potential costs, if there's like a leak down the road, if someone can't fit under there, we ripping out an entire section of the flooring and therefore have a carpet or flooring cost to replace as well. Yeah,
Right.
Great question. Anyone else have anything they want to add or ask?
I always tell my client, like, if you go from resale to new builds, right? Like let's be real, we all love things that are shiny and new and bling, right? And horrible flippers just bank on that. Right. And I always tell my client, look, it's your job to like fall in love and look at all the pretty stuff, right? It's my job to look at all those like, oh crap. Right. And when you look at, and this is why I think it's super important to preview properties and you get to know, and Joshua, it's like you said, if you see like a certain realtor slash flipper that has multiple homes, you are already keen to like the subpar work that they do and like the finishing of edges and all those attention to details that a professional that, like you said, that really loves his trade is going to pay attention to, and whoever is managing the project, right? That's the whole point of project manager, right? Like you need to crack that whip. So it's, I always tell my clients, like, don't be fooled by the shiny stuff, right? Because it could be like the Money Pit, the movie. So I don't know if I'm aging myself, but but yeah.
Absolutely. And then one of the biggest things is after an inspection, you want to get those big repairs done. So if you have any major repairs that are done by the investor, please make sure to get a verification of repairs done on this, because they'll come in and it's even worse than the flip itself sometimes. And they'll just kind of eyeball everything, I guess is the polite way to say it.
Well, also,
Also,
I also ask, oh, I'm sorry. I also ask them, like, okay, obviously, like, this is new. Like, who did it? Like, I need a professional, not your cousin Bubba. I'm sure he's done amazing work on the farm. But like, I need a professional. And does that warranty transfer? Right? Because if something, when it happens, can my client come back and say, hey, Bubba, I need you to come back? Right? So yeah.
that's exactly where I was heading, especially with the roof. I didn't think that would be something I would encounter, but I have. I've had someone say, "Oh, we've got a completely new roof," and they did it. Like the random contractors, not a roofing company, not something that comes with a warranty. So great, we have new shingles, but is that really enough for us? So yeah, good
Yeah, did they
points.
replace that wood rot, 12-foot wood rot around this chimney stack there, things like that.
But also too, it's like, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but like if you're like, oh, I've watched DIY and House Hunters so many times, I know what I'm doing. And I'm here with my cousin Bubba, you're not licensed. Okay, when you go to sell, and also like your home insurance. Like, if something happens, you are, up a creek, and that's not covered, at all.
Right.
I know you kind of alluded to this, Josh, but on the note of checking the tax records and seeing who the owners are and seeing if they have other properties, on that note, obviously it has the property address and their mailing address, and that's a very quick way to figure out if they are local investors or not. So just friendly reminder, another reason to check the tax records, because if they're not local, it'll be pretty obvious likely from that.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And you all would know better about that than I would. It was just one of the things that I've gotten into is, when I'm checking out a house, kind of seeing, if it's a local or out of state investor. And we can tell typically our 1950s houses are flips. Uh, we do a lot of research. Even our inspectors personally do research to like the night before anything like that. They can kind of figure out what they're getting into before they get out there.
One question I do have is, how do people help verify whether something's truly been replaced? I know we might get to this in another class, but like, I know serial numbers and things like that can be a little tricky to look up when it comes to HVAC or um, water heaters, but I know I've heard a few different agents mention, someone has said, oh, we have a new HVAC system, and it's actually like completely new components. It's not an entirely new system. So how do you check stuff like that? You literally just look up the serial number and type in the vendor and it'll pop up.
Yeah, absolutely. So home inspectors, we have a website that you can go to and look it up, and you can really just say you can Google manufacturer date for whatever system, and it'll show you uh, how to look at that serial number and decipher that date. When we go in, we always put the date. We look at the date, and when if it was 2024, um, and it says 2024 on that, we know it's installed, that same year. But we have come across that where they say, oh, we just have the HVAC system replaced, and it's 2004. It's just like, we're 2003. You're a little bit off there. What's going on? So we always bring that up. If we know something like that has been mentioned, or if the agent or the client say, "Oh yeah, it's been updated or changed out." We do get some information. We always try to look on the listings and things like that. Like, oh, the HVAC was replaced, 3 or 4 years ago with the water heater or whatever. So we always try to calculate those dates and things like that.
Thank you. Anything else, you guys? Last call. All right. Well, thank you everyone for being here today and spending your time with us. Joshua, thank you so much for your insight and knowledge and for sharing all of this. I appreciate it. You help us serve our clients well, and both in our way and keeping an eye out for things, and then in our ability to hire you and be a second set of eyes and ears and a resource.
Yeah,
So thank you
absolutely.
so much.
I
We'll be sure to include
appreciate.
your contact info when we send out the recording, and please know he's here to be a resource to you guys. If anything comes up, feel free to reach out. Till then, have a great
Awesome.
day,
Thank
y'all.
you all so much.
Thank
Of course.
you.
Bye.